Hey, we're in the 2020 code, and we're going to be talking about bonding, grounding, and some unnecessary stuff that some inspectors have you guys do that you get stuck doing because the inspector might not know the code, or you're just set in your ways and that's the way you've always done it. I'm here to tell you that you don't have to be installing intersystem bonds unless you're installing like a new building or structure. So if you're just installing a service or upgrading a panel, whatever you're doing, meter base replacement, anything like that, by code you shouldn't have to install an intersystem bond. So where are we getting that code? 250.94. Let's look at it. So we're also going to be talking about 250.53A4, and that talks about the length of the ground rods, because in the shorts, everyone's saying that an 8-foot ground rod is not necessary. So we're going to fix that issue right now. We're going to show you where it shows you the length on that. And I figured we'd look at Table 8, Conductor Properties, and show you how to size a grounding electrode for building steel. Let's say you have a 3/0 and the aughts are not in KCML. So if you look at 250.66 in the table, it'll say based on the KCML will determine what size ground you're going to run. Well, aught is not in KCML. So we're going to show you how to calculate that and go back to the chapter to figure out exactly what you need to run. So let's get into that. So 250.94, what it says is the intersystem bond here, and I'll hold it up here so we can see it. Okay, this is what it says. You can pause it. It says intersystem bonding termination IBT for connecting intersystem bonding conductors shall be provided external to enclosures at the surface equipment or media equipment enclosures and at the disconnecting means. Okay, so no argument there. That seems pretty straightforward. But without skipping a beat, it says for any additional building or structure. If an IBT is used, it shall comply with the following. And that's where it's got to be accessible for the connection, consist of a set of terminals, not interfere with the opening of the enclosure, and be securely mounted at the service equipment. Pretty straightforward, but the key point here is that right here where it says for any additional building or structure, if you're installing a panel or upgrading whatever you're doing, sometimes the inspector will fail you because you don't have an intersystem bond. That's not required unless you're doing new construction, new houses, new buildings, additions, things like that. So stop doing that and save your money, save your customer money, and secure that job, because that's like $50 back in your pocket, $50 back for your customer. And just telling your customer that might even land you the job. You're going to say, hey, other companies, they don't know exactly what they're doing. They install this and this and this. They charge you extra money. We're going to be able to save you this much money today because we know the code. Yeah. All right, next. 250.53A4. What does that say? That talks about the length of the ground rod. So we go back there. It says rod and pipe electrodes. The electrodes shall be installed such that at least 8 feet of length is in contact with the soil. So right there. Cool. 8 feet. Got a lot of people saying they drive 3 feet, they drive 4 feet, 6 foot. The code here, I showed you what the code book was. 8 feet. Not more than 45 degrees if you encounter bedrock. You can also put it in a trench or a ditch 30 inches deep. But the top of that ground rod has to be flush below the grade. So what I usually do, I'll call the inspector. I'll say, hey, are you going to let me put a 90-degree bend on this ground rod? That way we can have an accessible clamp and get everything done. So if he's cool with it, cool. If not, figure something else out. Stop cutting him in half. The kick test. You kick it, You loosen the acorn, you take the ground wire off, you tighten the acorn back on, and you kick it. And then you use the acorn like almost like a wrench, and you start twisting, and you pull it out of the ground. If they're less than 8 feet, they're coming out. It just seems like that's the magic number, because I've never pulled out an 8-foot ground rod. There was one time I kicked one and it spun. So then I was like, okay, this is happening. So I took the wire off and I was pulling it up, and I was pulling. I was like, oh crap, it's gonna be 8, but it was 6. So it was pretty funny though, because he had just like soaked the ground. It was really soft, and yeah, pulled that sucker. It started getting higher than my head, and I was like, oh crap, dude, this thing's gonna not be 8 feet. I mean, this thing's not gonna be whatever. It's gonna be over, and I've completely not done something good. So anyway, it was 6 foot, and the guy was kind of floored that I was able to pull it out, and it was kind of cool. But anyway, 8 feet is code. All right, next. Table 8, conductor properties. I've got some diagrams here. We can try to bring it up, but we're not going to mess with it too much. If it starts going south, we're going to get out of here. So hopefully you can see that. That says there, 3/0 is 167,800. What does that mean? That is the KC mil of a 3/0. Okay. If we've got two 3/0s parallel, we're going for 400 amp disconnect for a service. You need to know what size ground you're going to run based off of 250.66. Most commonly, people will be installing number 3, because 400 amps is good for 3 for ground based on 250.122, but that's 400 amps, not 400 amps of wire for the service. So we got to size off 250.66, which is the unprotected conductors, ungrounded conductors, whatever you want to call it, that's coming in, being 2 3/0. So 167,800 times 2 is roughly what is that, 330 something. So that's going to be 330 kc mil. And if you look at 250.66, which is right here, if I can get it, if I can't, whatever. Now we got it. 350 through, bring it up over here, there's right there, 3/0 through 350 is a number 2 on the copper, not number 3. So that's also a really common misconception. Here's some examples of the acorns, the intersystem bonds, and there's a ground rod. And hopefully this helps you guys out, and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and we will see you guys in the next one.